Hi everyone. My name is Judy and I am an educator, a mental health practitioner, and a mom from here in Saskatoon. And Crystal has invited me to speak to the Okami family a little bit about managing our mental health or dealing with some of the stress of the time that we're currently in right now. So I'm going to share with you in hopefully 10 minutes or less, first, 4 things to keep in mind right up front. So if you only have a couple minutes to watch this video, you'll want to pay attention to those 4 things. And then after that, I'm going to tell a quick story or two to help to frame some of the strategies and supports that I'm going to share with you. And then we'll do a little reflective practice, and I'll leave you with some resources for moving forward. So on that note, 4 things to remember no matter what. Number 1 is go easy on yourself. We want to have self-compassion and allow ourselves to make mistakes and pick ourselves up and try again and face every new day with a little bit of compassion, forgiveness, and knowledge around this is a time where none of us had a playbook and none of us were ready for this. So it's okay if we're making mistakes. It's okay if we're struggling. That's key right up front. Number 2 is you can if. So what this means is you can support yourself to cope and manage with tough stuff if you have some knowledge and some tools. And the good news is I'm going to share a couple things with you today that you can implement to support yourself in your life. The third one is reach out if. So you might have all the tools and strategies and tips and tricks in your back pocket and be strong and ready to go, but still struggle or stumble and fall. And in that case, you want to be reaching out to people. So for example, in my life, I've spent the last 2 decades as an educator and a mental health practitioner. And like I said, even as a mom, and I have lots of experience and lots of knowledge in this area. And I still find myself sometimes challenged and melting into a puddle on the floor with stress. And I need to reach out to someone who can help get me through that. Okay, so that's really important. And the fourth one is repeat. So that's really easy. So the first one is go easy on yourself. The second one is you can if. The third, reach out if. And lastly, repeat those things over and over as much as you need them. So moving forward, I'm going to tell a little story, as I said, just to frame this next section. So this story is about being in a time of distress, and the good news is there's a happy ending, so don't let it worry you or stress you out. But I'm going to use an example from a real life scenario where I had to survive in order to thrive. And in this scenario, I utilized some of the strategies I'm going to talk to you about today that you might use in a not so real life or death situation. But that will help me frame some of those tools for you. So this story has to do with a time that I was on a holiday with my husband. And when I go on holidays with my family, we spend lots of time in the water if we go somewhere warm because we love to swim and snorkel and play in the waves like lots of people do. So on this particular occasion, I was snorkeling with my husband. And there's a couple of rules to keep in mind when you're in the water, which are really important rules. And they are to always be aware of your surroundings and stay close, like arm's length from someone who can support you. And those 2 water rules are important rules in life right now as well. Always be aware of what's happening around you and paying attention to things, and keep people close to you who can support you if you're struggling. So this particular day in the water, I ran into trouble because I broke the golden rules. Actually, my husband and I broke the golden rules. And what we did was we snorkeled away in our own directions and off we went. And I was off on my own for probably a half an hour before I decided to come up for air and just take a breath. And as I was bobbing there in the water, I all of a sudden came to the realization that I was alone. And I was quite a ways from shore and I was quite a ways from my husband. And in that moment, I started to panic. And I don't know if you know what panic feels like, but we don't even have to be in a real life or death situation to panic. We can actually be in a situation that we think is a threat to us, and we can start to panic. And when that happens, our breath gets short and quick, and our heart races. And when that's happening, we can't think. Our brain kind of goes offline, like the computer got turned off, and in the background, there's some parts deep in the machine that's just keeping it going. And that happened to me in the water. And what I had to do, at first I kind of struggled and I flailed around. And then I realized in my years of experience in the water that struggling and fighting it would make it worse. So I went back to something I'd learned way back in swimming lessons, and that was the starfish. So I laid on my back in the starfish position. And as I was in that position, I realized, okay, this is going to work. I can float here for a minute or two and I can think about my breath and I can calm myself down, because this state that I'm in right now of alarm is not helping me at all. So I have lots of experience with working with my breath, and just by the nature of what I do. So I used my mind to help my breath come back online. And as my breath slowed down, my heart stopped racing, and then my thoughts, my rational thinking brain came back to my rescue. And I was able to remind myself that I know how to swim. I'd been swimming for years and a lot of time this particular day, and that I could just put my face back in the water and make my way to shore. I didn't have to be in a state of panic like I was. And so that's just what I did. And so I tell you that story. I made it to shore, and I'm here to tell the tale. And I'm going to use that analogy or that idea as we go forward with some of these ideas that I bring to your attention. So really, what the crux of this story is that I had some life preservers with me, some mental life preservers. And the reason I was able to call upon those to help me on this particular day is because I had practiced those things many, many times. And you don't have to spend 20 years working in mental health to practice the things that we need to do to save ourselves in a tough situation. In fact, I can imagine that some of the things I'm about to tell you, Crystal has actually told you about in the gym. So the things that we want to do to keep our bodies physically well are the same things we want to do to keep ourselves mentally well. And then there's a few extra things that we can do. So it's like a bonus. So what we do to keep ourselves mentally ready to deal with anything that life throws our way, physically or mentally, is to eat well and fill our bodies with all the healthy things that we can. And we can have those little snacks and treats and things, but we want to make sure that that's not overwhelming our system, and that for the most part, our body's filled with good nutrition. And then we want to be sleeping well, and we want to exercise. So there's the big three that you might hear about in the gym. In addition to that, we want to spend time socializing, laughing, having fun. And those things fill our body with happy chemicals, I call them, and they join up with the chemicals from our physical health, and they just keep us healthy and strong. Another one is, people sometimes don't think of this one, but there's this picture of my son here laying on the floor, and you might be wondering why I've got it there. But on this particular day, I came down the stairs into our living room, and he's laying there on the floor. And I think I was expecting that he was supposed to be doing homework or chores or something. And so I said to him, "What are you doing?" And he said to me, "I'm recharging." And he couldn't have been more right, because the sunlight recharges us and helps to fill our body with extra happy chemicals that we might need later when we're struggling. So sunlight is a great way to just naturally go out and absorb some of those rays. So yes, we want to wear sunscreen in the sun, but you want to give your body a little bit of time to get a few minutes of fresh sunlight a few times a day, so that you're helping to fill your tank. It's a really easy, cheap way to help protect ourselves. In addition to that, you want to make sure that you've got some downtime, some alone time, some relaxing things that you do. Another thing that I do to arm myself, protect myself against facing stress, is I do spend some time breathing. And you may have heard that before. Sometimes people talk about mindfulness or meditation, and they talk about the importance of our breath, but really focusing on my breath saved my life. And if focusing on my breath can save my life in a physically dangerous situation, you can bet it's going to come to your rescue if you're mentally struggling or mentally drowning with overwhelming thoughts. So those are some important things that you can work on. So now that we have that in mind, I want to do a couple of activities with you that also help contribute to filling your tank, so that you are protected when you need to come to your own rescue. So the first thing I want you to do is think about a memory that brings a smile to your face. Just thinking about happy thoughts. Again, I use this word a lot, or this phrase a lot, but it gets those happy chemicals flowing in our body, and we can always use extra reserves in the tank. One way that I do this with my family is every day at dinner, we sit down and we talk about the best part of our day. And in talking about the best part of our day, we're actually feeding our mental health gas tank. So think about things that bring a smile to your face. Go around in a circle, share it with your family, or even write it down. Sometimes people keep a journal for these things and they write them down. So the next thing that you can do is a thought that helps me regulate my response to challenging situations. And what I mean by this is often in life, we are faced with tough stuff. But the cool thing about that is that each time we face something tough, it's a lesson. And if we think back on how we managed in that time, we can use that to our advantage the next time. So for example, when I used all of those strategies in the water to save myself, if I'm ever faced with a situation like that again, I won't be, because I won't break the rules next time. But if I'm ever faced with a situation like that again, I will call upon the same things that I did before, and they'll be easy to do because I've practiced them. So you need to think about the things that help you to be calm and to cope and manage from previous situations, and you can bring those forward to the situations today. So you might think about something that you went through where you were able to distract yourself or calm down, or do something fun to bring up your energy levels, or maybe people you reached out to for support. How did you regulate when you were faced with challenge before? And when we pay attention to those things, we can call upon them really quickly when we need them in a pinch, like I did. So the next is an experience that reminds me of my ability to manage difficult situations. So this is like the previous one, but it's a little bit different in that I'm going to look at my past challenges and I'm going to use them as a strength. I'm going to say, you know what? I managed tough stuff before. And if I could manage it before, I can manage it now. And that's really as simple as that. So if you think about some times that you were faced with a challenge and what you did, and just even the fact that you got through it, that's enough. If you've got through something before, you can get through something now. And those are good reminders to give ourselves when we're struggling. The last one is to think of the people in our lives, first of all, who we have to reach out to, because that's important if we're struggling. As I said at the beginning, those 4 rules: I can, I've got this. And the first 3 are about I've got this. But this next one is about reaching out if. So the first thing about relationships is one thing I do is I write down all of the people in my life who I can count on when I'm struggling. And I do that when I'm calm and when I'm happy. And those might be family, friends, teachers. I might even have a therapist or a counselor who I reach out to. Just anybody in my life who's on my list of go-to people. You want to have that handy. The next thing you want to do is pick one of those people who you can say to them, hey, can you let me know if you think that I'm really struggling with my stress or my mental health, and sit down and talk to me about it? Because sometimes we get caught up in not wanting to reach out to others because we want it to appear like we've got it all together. And that's only human nature. That's just what all of us do. But in that case, we need people in our lives who are going to come and tap us on the shoulder and say, I think you might be struggling and I'm here to help you. And if you've picked that person, then you should feel close enough with them to be a little bit vulnerable. So for me, I've got my husband, and I let him know that he's my man, or he's my go-to person. And if I'm struggling, I need him to let me know. And so if he agrees that he can take on that role, then we know that we have a good support system. I can reach out to him if I need it, but he'll also reach out to me and let me know if he thinks I need some help. So those are just some ways that we can support ourselves in addition to all those other ways that we're going to try and take care of our physical and mental health to prepare us for facing adversity. This last activity, really quickly, is something I sometimes do with large groups of adults or young people. And we draw out a pie for all the different areas that relate to our health. So our health, like I've said already, is both mental and physical, but it can be social, spiritual, emotional. You can put anything in your health pie that you want to as a title or an area for protecting yourself and supporting yourself. And then what we want to do is put all of the things that we already do in each area where it fits. So what are the things I'm doing to protect myself mentally? Do I have relationship people who I can count on? Am I eating well in the physical pie? Am I exercising? Am I thinking about how I regulate my emotions and calm myself down when I'm stressed? All those things that I do. Do I spend time in nature? And maybe for me, that's spiritualistic, and that might go in that section. Once you have your pie, you're going to want to look at it and say, okay, where are all the areas where I'm doing really well? I'm arming myself to be ready. I've got all these life preservers here. And then the next thing is, and pat yourself on the back for all those things that you do. That's important to give yourself some credit. And then the next thing we want to do with this pie is look at it and say, okay, where are there spots where I could be doing more or I could be doing different? And investigate some ways that you can balance out your pie. And that's going to come to your rescue when you really need it. And the thing about all of these tools is you might not notice that they're benefiting you when you're calm and regulated and just going about your day. But you're really going to notice if you, like I did, end up in the water and maybe mentally or metaphorically feel like you're drowning. You're going to call upon those things. And if you've practiced them or paid attention to them, they will be there for you. So when they're not, the very last thing I'm going to share with you, and you can pause this and take a look at it, is some community resources. So sometimes we find ourselves alone and we are struggling and there's nobody close by that we can physically reach out to. And so in this case, these are some numbers and some contacts that you can use to support you if you really are struggling and you need to talk to someone. Some of my favorites are the Kids Help Phone. They're always there 24/7 to help children and youth who are struggling. And then we have lots of other mental health services. And obviously in a worst case scenario, we have emergency services in our city. You can reach out if you need anything. So I probably went over the 10 minutes, and that's okay. I covered some important topics. And if you ever need anything, I can be reached at Prairie Sky Education. So you can just Google that and find me on any of the social media platforms and reach out via email or text or phone. I have lots of ways to get in touch. Otherwise, get in touch with someone who is there for you in your life, and we will all manage this situation together. We're in it together, and we will support one another. So take care, be well, and thanks for spending 10 or 15 minutes with me today. Bye-bye.